Tony Taylor. A very, very warm welcome to the Humans versus Retirement podcast.
Thank you, Dan.
Tony, can't wait to have this conversation with you. We have connected up on LinkedIn, and Victoria Barker, who was on the podcast, is a good friend of yours, and we've just been having a really great conversation there about our journeys, etc. So one thing I do want to say, it's lovely to hear an English voice on the podcast. I don't have many of them. There's lots of American voices, a good Northern English voice as well, right? So
absolutely,
that's kind of what we want. So Tony, I won't spoil it, but you're on the podcast for a particular reason. And I'd love for you just to give the listeners an idea of your journey and how you've got to where you are today, and particularly writing about and focused on aging responsibly.
I had a business, a golf business, which I sold in 2010. Retirement comes at you quite quick. It's almost, for me, it was like end of the cliff thing. Obviously one day I'm busy, next day I'm not. So, and all your friends you thought you knew in your business sort of dump you basically. So your phone stops ringing and so you think, okay. So I'm now an ex-golf retailer. So I thought, well, what do I do with myself? So there's a lake just over here at my house here. I walk around every day as I retired and thinking, okay. And I met a guy a couple of times there who said, you retire? We started talking about retirement. He'd been retired 20 years. I said, what's your secret? How do you do it? I said, I get up each morning. I decided what I want to do. I do it. I have no plan. I thought, that works for you. I can't see that working for me, really. So I thought, for 12 months, I fannied around. Look, I did a few little... I'm not a DIY guy, but I did a couple of jobs that kept me going. A project, they call them. You also get yourself a project. That'll keep you busy. You can't keep you busy. I talk about 16 hours a day we all have, from 8 in the morning to whatever at night. It's about 16 hours of daylight. You've got to fulfill or fill with something. So I thought, what do I want to do? Do I want to be could I be a decorator? No, I don't do decorating. I need to get a job. I sold my business with not enough money. I need to earn a little bit of money. I thought, what do I enjoy doing? So I enjoy cycling. I enjoy music. So I started being a spinning instructor, which is basically indoor cycling. Did that for 12 months, bought 10 bikes in my conservatory like you do. Set my own studio up. Lasted 12 months, realised I was knackered at weekend. I'd go out cycling with my mates and I was burnt out by the time of the weekend. And the thing I talk about in my blogs, it's something called start first, fail fast. That means you start something, you throw yourself into it, you realise it's not working, so you draw a line under it and you move on, completely move on. What have you learned from that? I learned that I enjoyed fitness, so I basically got involved with the fitness industry through accidents I had. One was a fall off my bike, hurt my shoulder. One was I call a skiing incident, which it wasn't. It was basically falling off a table in a bar and cutting my hand on someone's pint glass. And I ended up being in hospital 3 times for various things. And one part of them was occupational therapy for my hand. I sat in the waiting room with all these older people and said, what are you doing here then? I fell over and broke my hip. What are you doing here then? I fell over and broke my hip. And I thought, hang on, this is ridiculous. So I did some research, and falling is one of the most deadly things you can get for a person who's sedentary. If he falls and goes to the rehab, there's a good chance they'll die later on quite quickly because they'll never recover from their already frail position. I thought, well, maybe there's an opportunity here. So I did some more research, qualified into being an active adult instructor, put together a big presentation in front of 90 people back in January 2015, 10 years ago. I picked up 9 clients from that presentation. 12 months later, I had 50 clients. I've been doing that ever since. So that was my purpose, really. It's still my purpose today. I've refined my service to make it work for me. I love doing it. I've still got a waiting list of people who want to come to me. And since then, I've wrote blogs, because also within that time, I also became a functional medicine practitioner, which basically talks about the root causes of illness, which is usually stress, really. Stress is the biggest one. So I wrote about that. I wrote a book. So I've been quite busy over my 15 years, and I want to talk about my journey through my blogs because I love writing. I love it's in my head, and it helps me do this basically because obviously I've got a lot to talk about, really. And I could talk endlessly. So maybe I should stop at that point.
No. This is your time to talk, and why I want you to share your knowledge and wisdom and story with people. I'm intrigued, right? Two things. It's kind of that journey has kind of one of the outcomes is launching Aging Responsibly, which is the blog and the writing and everything. And all the links to this will be in the show notes. What was there a moment that kind of sparked the idea behind Aging Responsibly, and kind of what is that service you offer people? What is that what are the outcomes that they're seeking, and what do you try and deliver for them?
I mean, it's just like when you're in my business where you teach strength, and when you go out to a supermarket or anybody, you see lots of examples of people not aging very well, basically. And obviously we know the social care system's on its knees, and we know about the horrible story. You have bed blockers, which is old people got nowhere to go, basically. 40% of the beds in the NHS are being used by people who are over 80, basically. So I thought there must be a way. In fact, I tell stories. The story I'm going to tell you now is an example of this, is that I was on my drive outside here waiting for my relations to arrive one day. And my neighbour called me and said, "Can you help me? Anne next door but one has fell." Now, Anne was an 89-year-old lady, quite a big lady. We got there and we saw her on the floor. Poor lady, her skirt was around her waist, and she tried to get back onto a chair, didn't quite make it, and fell down the floor. And we had to get her back on the floor. Present was my neighbour and a 2-year younger brother on a walking stick. He couldn't really help. So we managed to get her arm under her. After 2 goes, we managed to get her to the front of the seat. And she didn't have enough strength to get her from the front of the seat to the back of the seat. She had no muscles. So my neighbour told me a few weeks later, he called it just jelly and bone, basically. So, and I talk about this, I do presentations, and I say, and part of my blog is asking tough questions. So the question here is, who's responsible for Anne getting in that state? Where's the blame to be? Who's to blame? Is it the society? Is it her? Because my clients are 82, they will never suffer like that. I live with a 91-year-old. I'm an expert because I watch a 91-year-old who walks up and down my stairs 10 times a day. She can get back from the front of her seat to the back of her seat. So is that resilience? Is that determination? In fact, I asked my mother-in-law the other day, what's your purpose in life? And she said, after quite a long pause, she says, "I want to stay fit and healthy." I says, "Why do you want to do that?" "Because I want to see I get quite tearful when I do this. I says, I want to see my great-grandchildren grow up, So I thought, oh, wonderful. And my mother-in-law is like as tough as old boots. She never complains, and it's very unusual when I tell my friends that my mother-in-law lives with us. You think, oh God, how do you do with that? But she's like living with Mary Berry, because she just cooks, bakes, and she's lost her eyesight virtually now. She's got macular degeneration. But she's so resilient. And I talk about her stories a lot in my presentations. I write about her in my blogs. So I'll go back to the first question, who's to blame? Because she's resilient. She's kept a muscle, even though she doesn't do any formal exercise. So to go back to your question, why do I do it, and that's it really. It's basically to give people a wake-up call, to make them more accountable, to educate them, to ask them difficult questions, to give them a roadmap of a trajectory they can go on, which is either like this or basically going like a slippery slope, going like this to death, or you can basically do what my mother-in-law is going to do, which is stay like this. And at some point, she'll fall off a perch. And that'll be it. But she won't be drawn out illness. She'll live a full life. And that's what I want for myself. So I offer people little nudges of information and little nudges of encouragement and education to get out of bed. I'm just about to do another presentation about that first hour. They call it the power hour. I'm going to call it the power hour. What you do when you first get out of bed. I have a routine. I go do my thing in the loo. I take a big spoonful of the best olive oil I've found in the world, which has got numerous benefits. I go for a walk down my road here for 10 minutes, get some morning light into my brain, into my eyes, wake me up. I do my 10-minute workout in the gym, no more than that, every day, strength, hard, tough. I do some writing. I usually make my wife a cup of tea if she's lucky. I do make her a cup of tea. I do some writing. And that's my hour, basically. And I've usually got a goal for the day, and that's my power hour. No one's up at that time. I do it all on my own, sort of thing. That is the most important hour of the day, is how your intention for the day is set by that hour. It's not like an alarm clock. It's not like you just drift. I'm 70 years of age next year, and I'm living more purposeful because this stuff matters, really, because I see, because no one else is talking about it, really.
No.
They're not really just, everyone, one of my blog talks about the fact that if you type in retirement planning, you get, in a split second, you get 9 million bits of information, how to save money, plan money. That's important, but you don't need a lot of money to be fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spend bugger all. I play table tennis. That's free. 100 quid a year I pay for that. I play a bit of golf. I go on holiday. I don't go abroad really that much. Our 40th anniversary in a couple of weeks. We're going to spend some money in Genoa in northern Spain. You don't need a lot of money. I've got friends who, I've got to do one more year, get the pot as big as I make it. And then they get themselves, super ill. And my friend, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
Tony, honestly, everything hugely resonates. I mean, that's kind of why I've kind of gone down the road that I've gone down. I mean, this is, I'm a practicing regulated financial advisor, financial planner. But I realized really early on that it's much more than money. And people often work far too long. They're too obsessed with the spreadsheets. They don't think about all of the things that actually make a fulfilled retirement. And it isn't money. And we'll go on to your 7 pillars framework in a bit. But one of them that you've got is purpose. I talk about purpose and identity and relationships and structure and well-being, time. All these things are not, that you don't put them on a spreadsheet, and people ignore them at their peril. They save so much money and so focused on the money and have no idea what they're going to do with their days or spend their money. And the brutal truth is the vast majority of people who are retirees end up with more money than they started with, because they just simply don't spend as much as what they did, or they miss their window. There is that window of opportunity to spend your money when you are going to be probably most healthy and most wanting to do all those travel. It doesn't mean that you're not healthy. It's just your energy levels will probably naturally just kind of move down and be a bit sedated. And I think they miss that. And then I look at my father-in-law, and I've talked about him a lot. He's 83, fit as a fiddle. If I get him around to do some gardening, he puts me to shame. But he's back into accumulation mode, and he has been for the last 8-9 years, right? I mean, he's got a state pension, 2 private pensions coming in, and he spends about 30% of that income that comes in because he just doesn't, and so he's now just accumulating another load of money for the next, and he'll probably live for the next 10-15 years because he's got longevity in his family. But yeah, so I think, I'm absolutely fully with you here. And actually, one of the things that I'm curious about and to get your opinion on before we get into your 7 pillars framework, which I think we'll have a great conversation around that, or 2 things. Firstly, I'm interested in what you said about this kind of natural decline versus kind of cliff edge thing. And I think we need a new framework for how we age. And I was presenting at a big conference in South Africa last year, and they had a guy who was into longevity in medicine, and he was saying that what people want is this kind of really lovely way of living and then just to fall off a cliff. You don't want this natural decline of health, both mentally and physically, because it's not good for you, it's not good for your family, it's actually not good for society or the state, right? You want to be fit and healthy for as long as you can, and then one day just not be here. Like, that's an ideal thing. So I'm interested just to pick on that slightly. And also, what does that mean for how we then think about as we age and what we think about life? I talk about second half of life, forget retirement, how we think about life after, say, 55, 60. What does that mean for us? Because I think too many people neglect maybe the physical and mental training that you need to start putting in when you're in your 50s to make sure that you're in your 70s and you still have muscle mass and strength and cognitive abilities. Have you got thoughts around that?
Well, obviously there's two things, and there's lifespan and health span. Lifespan, how long you live, and health span is how long you live healthily. And health means that you're strong, usually on no medication. My mother-in-law's on no medication. So, because medication itself can have drastic side effects. I won't go into all that. But I think the biggest thing is self-care, really. Obviously, when you retire, no matter how fit or strong you are, you can really optimize your health. You can really go to town on your health. You can really get strong. You can really research what it takes to be, no one tests their vitamin D. I do it twice a year, Vitamin D is massive, I did an experiment in November. I usually supplement all through the year. And I make sure I choose the best supplement I can find and research that as well. I'm functional medicine practitioner, that's what I do. So I thought I wouldn't take it, and I did a measure in November, did the same measure about a month ago, and my vitamin D had dropped 30% because I'd got no supplement. Again, luckily I was a fairly high level. So now I'm just doing another experiment. I'm basically, every day I go out, I take my shirt off, in the middle of the day, no sun cream for about 20 minutes. That's the point where I start going a little bit pink. I'm not burning myself. I'm not stupid. Most of the time I wear a hat. If I'm going out, I've got no hair, so I get burnt. So I don't want to get burnt. I've got some sun damage, a little bit of sun damage, but I put cream in my face. But if I want maximum vitamin D, I've got to expose my legs and my body for 20 minutes, and I get tons of IUs, basically, which converts to vitamin D. So I'll do another test in the end of September, maybe. I'll see how it's gone. But I want to really maximize this time. Another test. And I write about the test. People can make what they want. But vitamin D, you have vitamin D receptors all over your body. So brain, liver, everywhere. It's not a vitamin, it's a hormone, basically. So that's just one thing. That's one little thing you could optimize, People say, oh, put suntan cream on, you're going to get burned. You've got to be sunbursts, I call it. Don't be crazy in that all day. You can obviously, as you do it more, you can tolerate more. So self-care is what it's all about. And like I say, the first part of my pillars of aging is sleep. And sleep's massive. Sleep's absolutely massive. You do all the research, you look at all the stats, and probably 40% of people don't sleep well. They don't get I spoke to a lady at one of my presentations. She gets 5 hours sleep a night. She's done it all her life. That's not enough, really. Your body's designed to recover and do a lot of things, obviously file things away from memory and stuff, growth factors. I think a lot of clever stuff happens when you sleep. So, yeah, it's just, and obviously I talk about sleep. I've had my problems in business. I slept terrible as a businessman. I had no off switch. And even when I retired, I had time where I didn't sleep very well. I had periods of proper insomnia. One happened last August. I know the date because it was the date I bought a certain book, which had revolutionized my sleep. And I was going through a bad period to a point that I've never done before. I went to my doctor to get some sleeping pills, and he gave me a little packet of maybe 5. I took them, slept all right, woke up groggy, which you do. Still went back for more. No, we can't give you any more because they're addictive. So we'll give you a little link to the NHS website. We'll talk about sleep, and we'll give you a link to a book. So I looked at the website. It's all the same stuff. Cool room, regulate your sleep routine, don't have caffeine, don't look at your screen. I knew all this sort of stuff. I still wasn't sleeping very well. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was sitting there reading a book. Just my wife was asleep over there. I was reading my book, just a non-fiction book, and just I thought, oh, I'll just look at this book. The doctor's probably rubbish. And I downloaded it, and I read the first chapter on my Kindle, and straight away I thought, light bulb, light bulb, light bulb, light bulb. And I read the whole lot in 5 hours, and the following night I slept 8 hours solid, and I slept ever since then pretty well. Last night I had a funny night's sleep because I'm involved with a charity. There's something happened to the charity. But I woke up using my techniques, and my techniques are, I won't go into it, you need to read the book called The Sleep Book by Guy Meadows. It talks about accepting all the things that are being your mind throwing at you. Your mind thinks it's giving you solutions by just making you throwing solutions at you. So you've got 3 things in your sleep that keep you awake: sensations and emotions. Emotions, things right, a panic attack. You go, oh my God, in the middle of the night you get a panic attack. Where's that come from? Accept it. Don't fight it. Accept it. Sensation, oh, feel hot. Oh, feel hot. Accept it. Accept everything. Because if you start fighting those sensations, you create another layer of not sleeping. So just by the book, I can't explain it all now, but it's about acceptance, basically.
Yeah.
And you live a life like that as well, accepting everything that comes at
Yeah.
you. Just accept it. Why fight it?
Yeah.
It's like the whole political thing. Just I don't watch the news anymore because I can't control it. Accept it. It's happening out there. All I can do is control my audience, basically. So I'm not sure where we were.
Yeah, and I think that Tony, that's really because we'll get into the pillars now. So that's a great. So sleep is obviously the first pillar, and I've had someone on the podcast really early on to talk about sleep, a sleep expert, because I think, again, when you dig into this more in more detail, sleep comes up all the time about how to, as you said, kind of wake up refreshed with intention. And I remember she said that actually a good night's sleep starts in the morning. Like you actually have to kind of like, you think about what you're doing during the day. But I just want to touch on it a second because I think it's really relevant to, and you actually mentioned this. I think I talk about a modern day retirement, right? I think that there's two folds to this. Well, three things really. Retirement is a man-made concept that was invented about 100 odd years ago, right? It's not been around that long. Fast forward to 30 years ago, and retirement took a big turn in terms of the money involved. In the finances changed, these defined benefit pensions were no longer kind of really in existence, and all of the money anxiety was on the shoulders of the individual to save and to build a pot and to manage that pot of money. So retirement changed massively. And then I think alongside that, the attitude towards retirement started changing. It wasn't an acceptance of stopping work. We had kind of forced retirement periods, right? You got to age 63, 64, and that you were told you've got to stop work. People become more aspirational in older age. I remember my grandparents, there was no aspiration there at all, and that's not a bad thing. It just didn't have any aspiration. And now I think if we think about this phase we're in, this modern day retirement, we are getting people now retiring, people in their 50s, mid 50s, late 50s, that have now experienced the very noisy social media led modern world that they've kind of worked the middle to end part of their career in. And like you said, business owners or corporate employees, high achievers, I think one of the biggest challenges is to step out of that world. I would imagine that a lot of these people, because it's an always on world, they're always switched on. They've always got their phone attached to them. They've always got a screen next to them. They're always available. You're a Google or now a ChatGPT away from understanding everything the world has ever produced. And I can imagine the real struggle that people go through to when they retire, particularly, I mean, there's a whole host of things they struggle with, but sleeping must be a big thing. Because I would imagine a lot of these people, as you said, Tony, in your personal story, you probably don't get good night's sleep because of all of this stuff that you're doing. And now sleep becomes probably more important than it's ever been for you to recharge mentally and physically. Any experience you've got of that? I mean, I know you said personally, but that must be a real difficult transition for people. And I think particularly people retiring right now that have really grew up their career in this modern, noisy world.
I mean, obviously, lack of purpose is a stress, basically. We're talking about stress as being one of the contributors to lots of diseases, and lack of purpose is a stress, basically. When you're not doing a lot, you sort of, you've not almost earned your sleep almost. So I lost my track now.
Yeah, no, I think you're right with purpose. I think that's, it's kind of that, if you don't have purpose to wake up in the morning, it's, that can be a real struggle, can't it? I think what we'll do, let's go through those pillars. We've touched on sleep, and as you said, I think it's a really overlooked kind of retirement health conversation, and I would encourage everybody to Google it, read about it. I'll put the link to the book in the show notes because I think it is so important. I think it's one of those things, Tony, that we all know how important sleep is, but very little people do anything about it. I'm in that camp, right? Mm-hmm. I kind of, I know how important it is, but you need to be, like all these things, really intentional about some of the things that you do. Your second pillar, which I'm really intrigued about, is resilience, and thinking about how to kind of bounce back and grow stronger. Talk to me about that.
We're all going to have setbacks. Obviously, aging is tough on the body and the mind. So, you're going to have the odd illness. You're going to lose people around you early, because obviously we've got the guy called Peter Attier. He talks about the 4 horsemen, which is obviously cancer, heart disease, diabetes, dementia. These are all around us now. And you probably know somebody who close to you who's either suffering from that or have gone because of it. So that thinks, oh, am I next? So you think, you've got to build a resilient body and mind. And I love telling stories. I'll tell you one more. The lady who made it to 100 years of age. In fact, I've got this is basically, I just noticed it now. This is basically, I went to her service. Mrs. Margaret Alice Kettle. And she was a post lady in our village here. And I've got a picture of her when she received her badge for 30 years as a post lady. That was at 65. That didn't tell you she did another 30 years as a post lady in this place. And in the early 90s, she had a break-in at her post office. People thought there was money in there, but it got taken away every night. And these 2 guys went upstairs. Her son lived with her. They punched him out of the way, walked into Mrs. Kettle's bedroom and just saw a handbag. There must be some cash in there. Dived to get the bed, get the handbag. She fought with it. She fought and fought and fought and fought. She let go in the end, and they got away and with nothing, basically. And I heard about it. I was in the post office maybe 2 days later. I saw her there behind the counter, because there's a post office bit, and there was like a haberdashery shop, sold all sorts of bloody things, screws, everything you could think of. I says, how are you, Mrs. Kettle? I thought, how are you? She says, I'm so angry. I'm so angry I let go of that handbag. I mean, everybody else would probably think, I'm moving out of this house now. I'm going to pack in, go into a care home, move out of the house because I'm not safe in this house now. So in my talks, I say, why did she choose anger as the emotion and not fear? What makes her what made her make that choice? How does she, she's a resilient. You don't get to 100 years of age without being resilient. And seeing all your friends die, because all her peers would have gone. And she still chose to be, it is a choice. You choose resilience. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
Resilience is pure mindset. My mother-in-law chooses every day to do her thing, to walk up those stairs and grab that rail and drag herself up the stairs every single day. That's pure. And I think he talks about it. Dick Van Dyke, he talks about, in his 30s, he exercised because he wanted to look good. In his 40s for a reason, in his 50s for a reason, in his 60s for a reason, in his 70s to be able to walk properly. But in his 90s, he does it for pure defiance.
Yeah, stubbornness.
I exercise because it's pure defiance.
Yeah.
I will not let the old man in. That's what Clint Eastwood said.
Yeah.
I will not let the old man in. So resilience is just pure mindset. It's just doggedness. It's just you're not having it. Yeah. And that's what I do. I think, I've got a goal to be as strong as I am now in my 80s. So if I do keep doing what I'm doing, but why will that change? If I keep sleeping well, eating well, connecting well, strength training, these are all part of my pillars, then why shouldn't I be as strong as I am in my 80s and realign again? Why can't I be that in my 90s? That takes effort and motivation and purpose and reasons. Anyway, so we'll go into purpose, shall we?
Yeah, purpose would be great. I mean, I talk about this a lot, so I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on purpose. I think it's often one of the hardest things to do or to define post-career. And I've had a few people that have on the podcast that have written specifically about purpose and talking about purpose. So yeah, give me your thoughts.
I think purpose is about the parts you play in the game of life. So, when you are working, you have a couple of parts. You're a career person, you've got a job, and you've got a family. And when you retire, these parts you play in the game of life can be so varied. You can dial them in and dial them up. You can pick something. So my parts I play in my life is obviously a father, a husband, and a grandfather. That's my family. Then I got myself as a table tennis player in a league and a table tennis coach. I'm also a trustee of a charity. I'm also a blog writer. I'm also do presentations. I'm also love walking in the Lake District. These are all the parts I play in my life, basically. And I can dial these up and down as I want to. I can do more of this. Because life shouldn't be rigid, because you've had that. You've had to be at work for 9 o'clock. and do this and be at a meeting. You've got to be there. Now you haven't got to do anything really. And it's just pure joy. I played table tennis just today with a load of guys. I just loved it. I was coaching one guy, then I was playing a match with somebody else. I had 2 fabulous hours, came home sweaty as hell, collapsed in the chair when I got home. And I slept well and I bounced back and do it again on Thursday. And so the roles, you can create these roles any way you want, but you've got to create something that, and as you get older, you start cutting away things. They call it pruning away things that doesn't really matter. And the things that really matter. And that might change. Because I think I'm almost like to the point where I love playing, but I love coaching as well. And I might find that I might coach more because I can see somebody. Sometimes I watch somebody I've coached play a great shot. And I get more enjoyment out of they do because I've coached that shot. Anyone can teach something. That's something, anyone can learn something, that power hour. Can you learn something the first thing in the morning that you can teach somebody else? A piano, anything. What can you teach somebody else? So that's my sort of, the part you play in the game of life, because it is a game, isn't it?
I think that's great. I love that. I mean, a purpose is I think you're absolutely spot on with everything that I've kind of done with people and read and spoke to people about. I think purpose doesn't have to be grand. It can be kind of rooted in, I think a lot of people mistake purpose as kind of, changing the world stuff. And it's not that, right? It's kind of, it's grounded stuff. And one thing that you said, I think I just want to pick up on, again, all of the research says this, and real life examples of people that I work with do this very well. I think mentoring and teaching and giving back in that way is one of the best ways in retirement. Use your wisdom and knowledge and your passions to give back, whether you mentor, you teach, you coach, whatever that looks like. And I would encourage anyone listening to this that is thinking about what to do or what their purpose might be. That's one of the biggest bangs for your buck you can get as a human being in your second half of life. And obviously you're getting massive joy from doing that yourself. So I think that's a really important bit to kind of pull on from what you've said.
I can always visualize myself as an 85-year-old sitting in the corner, these kids come in. Where's the coach? That'll be me. Come in, lads.
Yeah.
And start coaching these kids. And what better can you're with young people, old people and young people get on really well.
Yeah.
I've got wisdom, I've got patience, I've got humor, I've got authority, I've got in a nice way, it's like you're using all this wisdom and, to be a nice coach and the guy hopefully remember you. Those guys will remember you when you're gone,
Yeah.
And they'll teach their kids to play table tennis. It's such an accessible game, table tennis.
No, I agree. So next pillar, pillar number 4 is complacency. So how do we avoid, I suppose, drifting into, I suppose, or being passive as we age?
It's a cultural thing, isn't it? Obviously, when you retire, you're here, take it easy, put your feet up, have a lie-in, have an extra, have a glass of wine about 4 o'clock, have a bit of cake, go out and enjoy yourself, get some nice wine and indulge in yourself. Take all the conveniences, get a robotic thing to cut your grass. You don't have to do that anymore. Get a robotic vacuum cleaner for your house and all these conveniences. It's 3 C's. Complacency, conveniences and comfort. Be comfort. You've worked hard. Enjoy your fruits of your labour. Come on, put your feet up. All that leads to just weakness and just devastation down the road. It's like you've got to do the opposite. You've got to find things that are tough effort. Lifting weight for me every day, I hate it because it's just tough. It's horrible. It's hard, but I do it every day because I know it's over in 10 minutes. Because I'm a trainer, I know exactly what to do to get the best out of myself in 10 minutes. And on top of that, I've got me cycling, I've got me golfing, I've got me walking, I've got me table tennis, I've got me grandchildren. That's enough for me. But the 10 minutes, 3-4 times a week of strength training is important. It's hard yards, but I do it. And I go to bed at 10 o'clock. I could be in the middle of a Netflix thing. You know what? I'm going to watch this Netflix. Everyone says, I said, binge the whole lot and stay up to midnight. No, I'll watch tomorrow. Sometimes I'm weak and I don't. But most times, 10 o'clock, I'm gone. My wife's downstairs, I'm gone. Because that's my routine. Because my system, without being crude, my bowel movements depend on that morning thing because of routine that's actually, stuck in concrete. And I will go out occasionally. I'm not very boring, so I have a few. I don't drink much alcohol, but I have a little binge. I've got days and days and days and days and days, weeks and weeks with no alcohol. But complacency is just very sneaky. It is. It's very sneaky, and especially when you think you've earned your fruit, you've earned it.
Yeah.
We haven't really. You've got another 30 years to go yet.
Yeah. No, I think that's so, and I think you end up losing, as you said, losing the motivation. I think one of the things that I want people to understand is actually that the brain is a very lazy thing. It doesn't like burning calories, and it will always find
the easy option.
Right? So, you need to kind of, if you just left it to its own devices, it's going to tell you to switch on the robot Hoover. It's going to tell you to step on the travelator in the airport. It's going to tell you to.
That's the big one, the stairs. You look at people. I've watched people, and there's escalator and there's stairs, and I've stood there. And 95% will go up the escalator.
Yeah. And do you know what's really interesting, Tony? You might know this as well, but when I was in South Africa, Wayne Durman, his name was, he talked about the biggest bang for your buck is walking upstairs. That's it. That is massive. He said, if you do nothing else as you grow older, other than don't take the escalator or the travelator, or if you cannot take the elevator, just walk upstairs, you are going to... This stat, I can't remember it exactly, but it was something ridiculous. Like it's in the, it's like 20, 30% kicker in health, mobility and all of that stuff by just walking up the stairs. And they've done this experiment in New York, I think. They tried to reframe the stairs. So what they did, they had these stairs. I mean, any train station's got them, right? But they got the stairs next to the escalator. And like you, they looked at it and they went like 95% of people just go up the escalator. How can we encourage them to move more? So they basically painted the stairs like a piano and made them do notes. And it went to 50-50. Like they upped the people walking up the stairs by like 45% just because they made it a game to walk up the stairs.
My next pillar is strength, right?
Yeah, let's go there.
And I tell a story. I was playing table tennis again, one lunchtime. We organised, it's break time. Let's have a cup of tea, biscuits. Sat next to a guy. I says, "You're pretty good, you." He says, "Oh, you should have seen me before I moved into a bungalow." "You what?" "I've got bungalow legs now." "What do you mean?" "Well, since I moved out of my house, I don't go upstairs anymore. I came for my wife. My legs have gone to shit, basically. Sorry, by my French, because I'm not exercising my legs. Most stairs have 13 risers, get you from the basement to the next floor, 13. And obviously, I'm not doing that at all now. So I call it bungalow legs, and I write about it in my things. And I talk about in my talks the shopping bag carry. So imagine when you go to the supermarket, you come out of the supermarket, your car's parked way over there, and you're walking with a proper big shop. You bought some wine, potatoes, veg, heavy stuff, milk. The average decent shop is about 9 kilos. So you got 9 kilos in each hand. And what it tends to make you do when you pick up heavy things like that is sets your posture like this. You're being dragged into a certain posture because that's the way. You can't walk like that with a bag. You've got to use your back muscles. So basically, the shopping bag carry in the bodybuilding world is called the farmer's carry. It's the most functional and the easiest and the most effective exercise that any man or woman can do. And in my talks, I give a prescription for this. And what I say is, you start off with 20% of your body weight in either hand. So if you're 90 kilos like me, 20% is 18 kilos, and 9 kilos in each hand. I can do double that because I'm doing it forever. And that's a starting point. And you do that. You walk for 2 or 3 minutes a day. I just stand there basically for 5 minutes until your grip gives in basically. Because you're increasing grip strength, forearm strength, shoulder strength, and eventually the tension finds some way to stabilize itself in the core, and you're loading your legs. You just stand there with weights. It's called the shopping bag carry or the farmer's carry. And obviously from there you can do all the things with this kettlebell, but that's the key really, that one exercise.
Grip strength, again, I think they talk about that as now a big key test. Grip strength is actually a real key determiner of overall kind of strength and health,
and
right?
Longevity.
And longevity, yeah. So yeah, really, I think it's really, really, really fascinating. On strength, just pick up. I mean, we're talking physical, but emotional strength as well. Does that play into the resilience pillar a bit more?
Emotional strength, to me, obviously, part of my journey of getting old is spirituality, and I'm big on Eckhart Tolle, who's the power of now. Basically, he's
Yeah,
my
read this book. Yeah,
and basically, it's so simple. Just stop thinking. Just stop. You don't need to think. The thinking process can be equivalent of a tool, and a tool could be could be a saw. You saw a piece of wood and you put the tool away. That's it, done. So you solve a problem and you put the tool away. You just sit there and just think about nothing else. And that's how you sleep better and all this sort of stuff is basically having a quiet mind. So an emotional strength you talked about is basically just being aware of emotion, because the emotions tie into the ego. They feed each other, and you get this emotional roller coaster if you buy into it. If you don't buy into it, just observe it. But everything will pass. Another thing that he talks about, everything will pass. Because that feeling of something, everything will pass. Just feel it. You haven't got to go into a big dialogue about the whole thing. Just feel it, basically. So, because you want peace, that's all you want. I listened to this Buddhist the other day. He says we shouldn't search for happiness. We should still search for peace, basically. Because happiness isn't attainable all the time.
No, I agree. Okay, 2 to go. I mean, pillar 6, curiosity. So I think we've talked about this a little bit, haven't we? Like continued learning, being open, etc. What's your view on why that is a pillar and why it's so important?
Because you can get curious about things and you just say, oh, that's interesting. No, that's interesting. So, the thing I'm interested in at the moment is, I heard about a thing the other day about the schools banning phones now, or making kids put their phones in a sack, and the sort of behaviour and the performance goes up massively. So I could just think, that's interesting. Or I could maybe try and do that in my local school. Maybe I've got a couple of very wealthy friends. I could talk to the governors. Is there any way we can make this school phone free? So 2 things have happened there. Curiosity, that's interesting. Or going deeper and putting together a plan and making this actually happen. So curiosity is about. You get a few spark of something, but as you get older, you've got ability to put things together. You know people. You've got a bit of patience. You've got a way of communicating a story, and selling the idea to a millionaire, selling the idea to some governors, selling the idea to. It's the parents that are going to decide. If the parents say, "What a great idea," then you've got to find £35,000 to buy 1,000 pouches to put these phones in. That's just an example of curiosity, basically. And then suddenly, if you do that, you're sitting there and you're 90 thinking, oh, I helped that school get rid of phones. These kids are all going to be performing better. I think they will, because phones are killing people. I have a big argument with my grandson. A 14-year-old grandson comes around here, and we don't have phones at the table. Why not? So we have a battle then. So I'm thinking, this makes me even more determined to, I had it with my kids. It's even more prevalent now. But we won't go into the phone thing. I could talk forever about that. It's a whole workshop. So anyway, but curiosity is that way. It's either you have a dabble in it, or you go down the rabbit hole. I tend to go down the rabbit hole. I've been down rabbit holes so many times. Yeah. And you've got time to do that. You've got 16 hours a day to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. No, I agree. Absolutely. And like you said, the learnt the learned wisdom to help to probably deal with that better than you've ever been able to deal with it, right? I mean, I think that's what a lot of people forget.
Best business people are old people. They've been through it all. They've got no egos anymore. They've been through it all. There's no big ego to be rich and stuff. They want to just make a difference.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't matter if we don't make a difference. It doesn't happen. But, not a big deal. I won't get,
Let's talk about, it's interesting you mentioned that we won't go into the phone thing per se, but I think it does come into your last pillar in the pillar of connection. Because I do think, I mean, I've spoke about this a lot, the Harvard study that talks about the importance of relationships. The number one predictor of a long and healthy life is the quality of your relationships, having positive relationships. But obviously, I think our human-to-human connection has been challenged and is being ever more challenged in a modern world. But how important is it to your aging process, aging well, aging responsibly, to have connections, to build on those relationships, to be part of a community. And you mentioned something earlier on, and to maybe have relationships across all different demographics, right? You don't just want to have a group of friends that are in their 80s, because you could end up quite lonely if you're the last one around, right? And also that, the getting kind of a youthful energy inside you can be contagious from hanging around with people that are a little bit younger.
The whole thing, why do women live longer than men traditionally, really? I mean, obviously they're better at connecting with each other. So I have a couple of mates who I go coffee with, and wherever I am in a coffee shop, you look around, 3 women, 2 women, 3 women. We're the only 2 blokes having coffee. Blokes will go for a pint. Alcohol's not very good for you, so that's the way they socialise. They go for a drink and stuff, which is fine. Or they don't do anything at all. They go in there, men in sheds, they go in their shed in the bottom of the garden and don't see anybody. And another picture I posted was they started a choir in my village. There was 25 people in the choir. There was 23 women and 2 blokes. So why is, I'm not saying you've got to join a choir, but I'm just thinking, why do women do that? Why do women, so what they're doing, they're connecting. They're sharing an experience, basically. And the same thing for Pilates. I've been a token bloke in Pilates many times, yoga, the token bloke. So what is it about that? They just get it. Connection's massive, oxy. When you're talking to somebody, have a deep conversation, not like we're doing, because we've got a big screen in the way, but when we're next to it in a coffee shop, there's a hormone called oxytocin, which is called a cuddle hormone. And eye contact and deep conversations release this oxytocin, which is a healing hormone, basically. It makes you feel good. So hugging people for 20 more seconds is the best way of getting oxytocin rush. Don't let them go. But connection is massive, and obviously the phones do work. Because obviously with I've got at least 10 WhatsApp groups of different things that I use to connect with people. To walk, table tennis, golf. It's easy. It's easier to be the one. Just be the one who organises something, connect people together. It's so easy nowadays. Technology makes it easier. Get them together and then get rid of the technology. You've got you together. That's got you there, the technology bit. Then get rid of it and just talk and just walk in silence. Doesn't matter. You are a fellow human being. We are designed to be together, not designed to be separate. So it's a massive, massive untapped. And obviously that's what you see when you get old. You see lonely people, basically. And loneliness is worth them 20 cigarettes a day, they say, don't they?
Yeah.
So.
I think that there's a lot of research around that, isn't there, saying there is a kind of a loneliness epidemic going on, and people are really struggling with that. And I think it's so bad for your health, and
You've got to be proactive. You've got to go out there and drag friends off the street if you have to. You've got to find somebody who you can relate to.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Don't wait. Just take action. I think that's the key.
Always.
Tony, this has been such a great conversation. So and I've got one question I want to ask you before we wrap up. I will put onto the show notes, obviously, as I said, information about your website, your blog, these 7 pillars: sleep, resilience, purpose, complacency, strength, curiosity, and connection, which I think is a phenomenal framework for people to start thinking about. But if you could challenge every retiree to change just one thing, what would that be?
Up until about 2 weeks ago, and maybe not clear about it, but I was driving 2 weeks ago to do I love cold water swimming, to this lake. And I thought, I'm listening to the radio. I'll put something on my YouTube. And I found something by Jim Rohn. You remember Jim Rohn, personal development guy. And he talked about this power hour. So, how you start your day. That is it really. Can you start your day if you've got to find a way of not tired to sleep, because if you can get that, if you can get outside, get outside in the morning light, it sets your circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm has been there for 1 million years. The sun in the sky, which is always there, the clouds there, but it's always there. Get that morning sunlight in your eyes, 10, 15-minute walk, and then do your exercise, whatever it might be, ideally strength, ideally shopper's man's carry, a few step ups up the stairs a few times if you have to do that. and then go down and work on your, what are you curious about? What can I do? What can I teach? What we're seeing? What thing can be changed? And what can I get? What can I use my wisdom for to make the place a better place? And you can plan your holidays. That's fine as well. Plan your next travels. Have a great time. But when you come back from your holiday, you still got those 16 hours a day to contend with. So that'll be it. That first hour will be that sets the whole day, really.
Yeah. That's a great takeaway. Great takeaway. Tony, this has been such a wonderful. That's fine. We'll let that go, and we'll re-edit in this ending bit.
I'll finish in a second. Hopefully, 1 second. It'll go in a minute.
Let's go.
I've got my camera as the.
There you go. We'll go back in to do the ending. Hold on. I've just got a clap to let James know that we're going to go back in. Tony, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking your time, for sharing your wisdom today. Your mission, your purpose is obviously really shining through from being a really successful businessman, running a company that I've actually bought lots of stuff from as a golfer, and transitioning over to this new purpose that you have. So thank you for the work you do. I've read a number of your blogs in anticipation of having this conversation. I can really vouch for how great they are. So I encourage everybody to listen to go on to Tony's website and read those blogs. And I said I'll put all those in the show notes. But Tony, thanks once again for joining me today.
Cheers, Dan. I really enjoyed it. It's nice to be able to talk about my passion to somebody who asks nice questions. And, I can rattle on a bit too long sometimes, but I love talking about it. So it's given me a renewed purpose as well.
Amazing. No, great. Feel free to rattle on because I do the same. So this is kind of a rattling conversation, but it's been wonderful. I love it. So thank you, Tony. And that just leaves me to thank everyone once again for joining us on the Humans versus Retirement podcast. Until next time, take care.